Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to be featuring the Massachusetts Beat. I know in one of my previous compilation videos of this ship, I said I wouldn't post any more vids on this ship, mainly because I obviously play it way too much. But this was a very good game, and I was playing the Massachusetts very aggressively against an enemy carrier who simply came after me for pretty much the entire game. I should also mention that the enemy carrier was in the Saipan, so obviously the ordnance that the Saipan drops obviously hurts and does cause problems. However, I was able to manage fairly well. I should also point out that I am not using will to rebuild. In this game, I was building my Massachusetts to try and have the stats reflect as close as possible to that of the Massachusetts on PC in terms of its secondary reload, turret traverse, and all of that good stuff. In order to do that, I had to throw on running with scissors and then the secondary battery reload mod into that fourth slot. I do wish running with scissors didn't decrease your main battery accuracy by 6%, and if it didn't do that, I probably would use running with scissors all the time over will to rebuild. On this map Trident with this south on the left hand side spawn, I like to push to the right of the spawn island and come to where I am now. As I was pushing in, I did take a pot shot at the enemy Weimar on the other side of the map, which is why this position is so effective, mainly because now I can also focus my attention on A, using running with scissors and shooting a broadside Roma at less than 3 kilometers, and that is the dispersion I get because of running with scissors, which was an absolute joke. Now, the Massachusetts does have a 1.8 sigma, which is the exact same as the Iowa, which is kind of odd since the Massachusetts, at its nature, is meant to push in, and the Iowa is meant to play at somewhat a medium to far range. Now, there you see the 1.8 sigma in effect, where for some reason now the accuracy is actually good. Well, actually, it's not for some reason, it's called RNG, which absolutely sucks for consistency and battleships. I do start reversing because now there is an enemy Ganizen out here pushing in, and I have a feeling he is launching torpedoes. In this game, I am using the damage control systems mod in that second slot and not actually propulsion mod, so I can't reverse at 20 knots. His torpedoes get spotted, and unfortunately I am going to take one, all the while the enemy Saipan is focusing me. Looking at the map, we have our entire team pretty much running to the bottom border, and we are just simply the closest ship, so we are obviously going to be the one getting focused. Right after the Gneisenau had launched his torpedoes, my secondaries were actually able to destroy the torp tubes on his left side, so that means I can go forward and try to get onto the side that he does not have torpedoes anymore. While he was pushing in, he was also using HE, so I am taking a bit of a gamble thinking he still has HE loaded, and I do drive forward, turning my turrets to the back in order to try and pull off this somewhat of a drive-by. The Gneisenau is in fact shooting HE, and I am set on a double fire unfortunately. However, using Optimus Prime and having that damage control mod means that my fire durations are 40 seconds. One Saipan torpedo hits me and does cause a flood. I am on a double fire and flooding, which is not looking very good for me, and typically what happens when you go against a Saipan. My damage con comes off of cooldown, and I use it immediately, which is honestly a mistake because he does still have torpedo planes in the air. He is able to drop torpedoes, and I start turning in to try and make them not arm, and I am extremely lucky there that they did not have time to arm. You did see the red triangle pop up, so it was very close to arming. If it had armed and caused a flood, I would pretty much be dead here, and all I really needed to do was wait a little longer in order to ensure that I wouldn't be set on a flood. This enemy Vladivostok is pushing around the corner broadside to us. I do take aim and hope to citadel him, especially with running with scissors active. Unfortunately, I only land 3 shots, and I am unable to get any citadels, chunking him for more of his HP, especially since I am so low, and chunking him for much more would have been helpful in order to help myself survive. My heal comes off of cooldown, and I use it immediately because the enemy Saipan is back and trying to focus me in order to kill me off. Being in running with scissors does in fact help with this Vladivostok, since every shell that I can land that deals damage will deal 15% more, which is a great help. I turn to angle fully to the Vladivostok, and in doing so I make the Saipan miss his entire drop. He is returning from my broadside, so I try to make sure that he is in fact dropping across my ship instead of the length of my ship. He starts a fire, and I instantly damage con it so that it doesn't burn for any more HP, and hopefully by the time his next squadron returns, my damage con is off of cooldown. The enemy team that was on the right flank is now in the middle of the map and pushing us this way. I decide to turn away just so that I am not focused and lose all of my HP, especially when the Saipan returns. The last thing I want is to be HE spammed and having to worry about more things that will use my damage control. I am located, which also means their enemy destroyer is closest to me rather than any of my teammates, especially since they are down south of the border and behind that island. The enemy Weimar does get spotted, and I do take a shot to try and kill him off because he will be a very big problem. My shells land, and I'm able to kill him off, and just as I do, the Saipan's torpedo planes return. I do slow down here, and all I'm trying to do is keep this island between me and the torpedo planes so that he can't really arm and drop me with his torpedoes. The enemy destroyer does get spotted, and I ping the map on his last known location, but I really need to just try my best and not let this Saipan drop me with his torpedo squadron. As he rounds the island, I do start speeding up so that he can't land torpedoes on my stern. I do need to be very careful of the black because I'm assuming he has launched torpedoes in the front of the island where I am headed in order to try and hit me. Using this island to mitigate the angles that the Saipan torpedo planes can drop me is very helpful, and he is unable to actually line up a good drop. And just as I move forward, I slow down, and the black's torpedoes do get spotted, and now there is no torpedo threat. The black has launched his torps, and the Saipan's planes were all shot down. Now I do have my friendly Weimar pushing this black's smoke, so now I'm just going to hold my shot and be ready for when he gets spotted. He does get spotted by the Weimar's torpedoes. I focus my secondaries on him and take a shot. I chunk him for a pretty decent amount, and my secondary button consumable comes off of cooldown, and I use it to try and have my secondaries land shots on him much more consistently. Unfortunately, secondaries just simply can't lead targets that are very close to you, and I only land one secondary while the button was active. It is unfortunate that in this situation it would have just made more sense for me not to use the secondary button to make my secondaries more accurate, because being more accurate actually makes it less accurate, if that made sense. As I played more games in the Massachusetts, I am debating whether or not I should go back to the spotter plane, because with this specific build, the secondaries do reload much quicker, and using the secondary button isn't as useful simply because of situations like that, where the destroyer just simply moves forward and secondaries can't lead. The only time the secondaries are actually useful is when farming a bow-in battleship, because then it will deal a lot of damage to the superstructure as well as start fires. But what I'm also finding is that the secondary's rate of fire with the secondary battery mod and not using the secondary battery consumable is still just as effective as not using it. Well, technically that's not true. Using the consumable obviously makes your secondaries more accurate and hit more often, but I find that the difference isn't that big, especially since the consumable only lasts for 30 seconds. And then using a spotter plane, I do get 4 more accurate shots that give 10% more sigma. This Massachusetts does come around the corner within my running with scissor skill, and I chunk him for a lot of HP, and he is killed off very quickly. And what looked like a very easy loss is actually turning out to be quite a very good win. The enemy Saipan planes do return. However, he finally decides to go and drop someone else. He decides to go after our Tirpitz that is on very low HP. He has tried to drop me for this entire game, basically 10 minutes, and still hasn't managed to kill me off. This enemy Flandre starts turning away from our Tirpitz in order to run from his torpedoes, and he does go broadside to me. I take a shot, and I'm going to be able to kill off this Flandre. Our friendly destroyer that has sailed through Alpha and into the enemy spawn has finally found the enemy carrier all the way at Charlie. And all I'm really hoping for is the opportunity to get into range and try to kill him in some revenge effort. Not only do I want some revenge for him harassing me the entire game, but also I have 4 kills and I am hunting for a Kraken. So I am just going to keep going towards the Saipan and hopefully he doesn't get dev struck by our destroyer. Our battleship in the south spawn being spotted makes this Saipan turn away, and he does start heading to the border, which is unfortunate because now he is sailing further away from my firing range. I am still a little baffled by the fact that our team was somehow able to pull this out, especially after abandoning flanks and sailing to the border of the map. I do think I am glad that the enemy CV was focused on me for so long, because at least I know how to try and mitigate damage from carriers, and I don't think I could say the same for my teammates. If my teammates were focused, then perhaps they would have died sooner, and then I would be focused by more than just the carrier, and have to deal with all of the ships from the other flank on my own. I'm finally in range of the Saipan, but unfortunately I don't lead enough, and my dispersion wasn't exactly that great, so I only land 1 shell. The Saipan is getting shot at by our destroyer and our friendly battleship that is south of Charlie, and my guns are about to reload, and I am looking forward to trying to kill him. I do take 1 last salvo, and this dispersion is looking fairly decent, and it is led well enough, and I land a Citadel, killing him off and securing a Kraken and Dreadnought. This game was pretty stressful, and having to deal with the carrier on top of all the enemy ships while being so aggressive definitely made this a lot more difficult. 171,000 damage and 3,300 base XP. Definitely a good performance in the Massachusetts B, if I do say so myself. But that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Do leave a like and subscribe for more, or leave a comment down below for any ships you want to see in the future. But until next time, aloha.